Hi, this is Darren from SimNation, just doing a quick recap video for WWPF, which is one of our two draft day sports pro football 2024 leagues here at SimNation. Draft Day Sports, of course, is a Wolverine Studios title. I highly recommend taking a look at it. They have a lot of different titles that are available for people who like text-based simulators or simulation football. Okay. Week 16 ran on Friday. Week 17 will run tonight. Normally I do a video later tonight, but it's New Year's Eve and I'm not doing a video. Plus, I need to capture the chaos that is the playoff picture in the final week of the WWPF season. So we'll start with the less chaotic of the two, which will be the AFC. Um, Essentially, whoever wins the Pittsburgh-Oakland game tonight is the number 1 seed. Whoever loses is the number 2 seed. The reason for that is no matter what New York does, let me take a step back. So Oakland is Peter, Pittsburgh is me, New York Jets is, of course, DP. No matter what DP does tonight with the New York Jets, none of these three teams played head-to-head, so there's no chance of that. It's going to fall to division record. Both Oakland and Pittsburgh are undefeated in their divisions. New York has the one loss against New England, which means that no matter what happens, New York is the 3 seed. So they're in the wild card round. The 4 seed, no matter what happens, is Jacksonville. Starfinders had a great season there, and um, he gets the 4 seed. The 5th seed is already locked up. It's New England. That's Shark. Shark had a great season. That loss last week to New York kind of prevented him from being able to create absolute chaos in the AFC playoff picture because he has played both Oakland and Pittsburgh and he beat them both. But that's not in play. So, which means that the final seed, the 6th seed, is up in the air between Baltimore and Cleveland. So Baltimore's Kevin, Cleveland is Bio Eagle. They both, all things considered, if they both win, Baltimore wins the playoff spot. If they both lose, Baltimore wins the playoff spot based on the division record. The best thing that can happen for Cleveland is they need for Baltimore to lose. That's really the only scenario where you can have it to where Bio can get that spot. Um, and if I remember correctly, Baltimore plays New Orleans. I think they're at New Orleans. That's probably going to be a win for Kevin. And then Bio is at Tampa Bay, where he'll play Kyle, who's one of the newer coaches. I still think that could potentially be a win for Cleveland. So, long and short of the AFC, the 1 and 2 seed is still up in the air. The 5 and 6 seed, I'm sorry, the 6th seed is still up in the air. Pittsburgh wins the game tonight. They're the 1 seed. Oakland's a 2 seed. If Oakland wins, Oakland's a 1 seed. Pittsburgh's a 2 seed. And then, of course, Cleveland needs Baltimore to lose to New Orleans. And if Baltimore doesn't lose and they win, no matter what happens with Cleveland, they would be out, and it sucks as a 10 and 6 team. Now, the NFC, the only thing that we're certain about in the NFC is that Seattle is the 1 seed. So, congratulations, Spoof. There's no way anyone else can take it because he owns all the tie breaks. Plus, he has a head to head win against Minnesota. So Seattle is the 1 seed. The 2 seed is now being fought out between Carolina and Minnesota. So Minnesota's Rick, Carolina's a visible witness. This one is a little bit interesting. Um, so if Minnesota wins, Carolina loses, Minnesota's in. If Carolina wins, Minnesota loses, Carolina's in. If they both lose, Carolina is in, even though they would be 9 and 3 in conference because there's no head to head. Division records are the same, conference records would be the same. It would then move to points for or points scored. And there's not really any way short of Minnesota scoring like 100 points that Rick's going to be able to get hold of Invisible. So he really needs for Carolina to lose. And there's a chance of that because Carolina's playing Dallas, and we'll talk about Dallas in a second. Minnesota, of course, is playing Indy. It's a battle of the two Ricks. So he's got a good chance of winning that. The East is still undetermined. By the way, whoever loses the Minnesota Carolina race is the 3 seed. So they would be in the wild card round. The East is easy if New York wins. New York is the East champion at 10-6, no matter what Dallas does. If Cable loses, he needs for Dallas to lose, and then he's still the East champion, and will come in as the 4th seed. But if Dallas wins their matchup against Carolina, then Dallas would win the division. New York would be really the 5th seed in the playoffs. Outside of that, let's just assume New York wins this, make it easy. Dallas still can. Dallas is in relatively easily if they win. If they win against Carolina. The way that tie breaks work, just so everybody understands, is a tie's half a win, half a loss. So when you see the 8 number, it's actually 8.5 because he's got that tie. If he were to win, it's 9.5, which comes out almost to 60%, which would make him just short of New York's if they were to win. But it means that no one else is really going to be able to get there at 9-7, which means Dallas is in. So easiest way for Dallas to be in the playoffs is just win, and then they'll win. When we talk about the other ones, it gets a little complicated. So Atlanta can easily clinch with a win against Philly. Philly is of course 2-13, so there's a good chance of that. The next up would be Green Bay. Green Bay can make it in if Atlanta loses and Dallas loses. And it's the same for LA. So essentially, if Atlanta loses and Dallas loses, it creates a scenario where Green Bay and LA can get in. LA right now is sitting at the bottom of the bubble. So if you think about the bubble, really, it's really Dallas first, Atlanta, then Green Bay, then LA. Now, if something weird happens, like Green Bay loses, Atlanta loses, and LA loses, and Green Bay's DWK, LA is Barry, then it would create a very interesting scenario where no matter what happens, Dallas is in, and then likely Atlanta is in. Well, not likely, Atlanta would be in. It would be cool because Chicago, in theory, would be there, so would Arizona. So Chicago's Cotton, Arizona's Don Lucky, but nobody's going to break that 5-1 record that Atlanta has, minus Dallas. And of course, Dallas would be in because the 8.5 wins. They wouldn't be at 500, they'd be slightly above it. So, best case for if you're burying DWK, you need for Atlanta and Dallas to lose, or yeah, you need it for one of the two, Atlanta or Dallas, to lose, and then you should be able to sneak in, but you still got to win your games. So, if I had to guess what's going to happen and what's going to look like, Seattle's the 1 seed. I'm going to go with Carolina at 2, Minnesota at 3, New York at 4, probably Atlanta at 5, and then I hate to do it, but I think it's going to probably be Green Bay at 6 because Green Bay plays Tennessee. I think they have an easier path in LA, who has to play against Chicago in Chicago. So as you can see, it's just completely still up in the air, especially in the NFC. The only thing we know for certain is the 1 seed, and then we know the 2 or 3 seed is going to be Minnesota or Carolina. The East is still very much up for the 4 seed, and then still very much up in the air for the 5th and 6th seed. League leaders, just real quick, kind of talk about this. Spriggs has just had an amazing season, 5,814 yards. Watson is up there, who's Seattle's really good quarterback. Zelensky, I think he's had issues with being healthy this season, so he's kind of down a little bit. Felder's had a really good season with Indianapolis, and then you can see the rest of the quarterbacks. Payne is a rookie quarterback, so Don has done a really good job with him, and it gives him a very, very solid quarterback to deal with. Watson, of course, has been leading in touchdowns throughout the season, but again, Spriggs is right there as his tenant from Oakland. Passing rating, if you look at this, Watson is again up there. So there are some people who could make the case that Watson should win the MVP over Spriggs because he has more touchdowns and he's got a better passing rating. But it's gonna be between those two really for the MVP this season. Good job by Payne, who's had a really good year. So has Cintron, who was a rookie as well, as is Goldman. Um, with the rushing, it's still a battle between Ford and Lackey. So Ford at San Francisco, Lackey at Pittsburgh. Those will be likely one of your top two rushers because I think Battaglia is done for the season. He's not going to be running for any more yards. And then, of course, Bean should win the rushing touchdown title. Receivings, yards, Mackey, it's still really close between Mackey, Spencer, to a certain degree, Alvarez. I think he's still within striking distance if something were to happen, but it's really between these two. And of course, Mackey benefiting from Payne as his quarterback, and Spencer benefiting from Bates as his quarterback. Um, and again, you can see the touchdowns. Well, Mackey has a slight lead over Roberts, who I think has set like lots of different records for touchdowns. I could be wrong though. Sack wise, Sassor is finally overtaken Candelaria, who had it most of the season. You got Mercer up there from Cleveland. It's still really tight where a lot of things can change here. And then from an interceptions perspective, Carolina has multiple people up there, but it's still pretty wide open to see who will be the pick king of it all. Rookie wise, there are a couple different rookies I think that are in play. I'm trying to remember where I can see this. If we look at awards, so Spriggs, as I mentioned, Watson. I don't really think Leonard's going to play into this at all. Tennant, probably not. Neither Zelensky. It's really between these two. Same thing Hill with offensive MVP. It's really between Spriggs and Watson. Defensive MVP, this one I've got to do some more research on it. I don't normally like the CPU choosing this one because they choose wrong. Because you can see the current sack leader was not even up there. I would agree that Candelaria generally should be up there though. Rookie of the year, a couple running backs. Remember, this was a big running back class. Johnny Jansen out of LSU has had a great year for uh, Jacksonville and Starfinder. Merriman, of course, was Spoof. That offense has just been explosive. He may not have done as well on the ground, but he's doing better through the air. And you can't look past Jesse Payne with the year he's had either. Stephen Hood was one of the generational free safeties that came out. So definitely keep an eye on him. But Dalton, and there are a few others that aren't listed here. But that's kind of where we find ourselves. So tonight we'll run week 17. We'll have a complete picture of the playoffs. And then, of course, on Tuesday we will run the first round of the wild card. So if you're interested, definitely take a look here. We still have some teams open. We've had some new coaches come in. I'd also encourage you to take a look at GMPFL. That's the other Draft Day Sports Pro Football League here. GMPFL is a little different in that you have to use your coach's playbooks. It has fog of war turned on, so instead of 1 to 100, it's 1 to 10. And we just completed the first round of draft there, so there are a couple teams still open if you're interested in that as well. And I may put the link in this video. So thank you. Hope you all have a great New Year's. Probably won't do another video before then, but thank you for all the comments throughout the year and the views. I definitely am appreciative of it. And I hope that everyone has a safe and happy New Year. Happy early New Year.